All right, welcome. For the longest time, the whole debate about humanity's future, about us merging with machines, that was just sci-fi, right? Well, not anymore. Suddenly, we're asking these questions for real. And what kicked this all off wasn't some movie. It was an absolutely stunning scientific breakthrough that might just change, well, everything.
So what exactly happened on October 22nd, 2025? Well, Google dropped a bombshell. They announced they'd achieved a real, genuine quantum advantage. And look, this is so much more than just a faster computer. We're talking about a machine that can solve problems our most powerful supercomputers can't even begin to tackle. This one discovery, it radically expands what computation can do. So much so that the dream of merging our minds with AI just went from a question of if to a question of when.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to look at the science that really lit this whole fire. Then we'll dive into the incredible promise of what they call the singularity and this idea of freedom of form. But, every big idea has its critics, and wow, are there some powerful warnings here. We'll get into those before we land at the crossroads humanity is facing right now. All right, let's kick things off with the science. To really get a handle on the promises and, the perils, we have to understand what Google's quantum team actually did that has everyone from physicists to futurists paying such close attention.
So what they pulled off is called verifiable quantum advantage. And trust me, that word verifiable is everything. See, for years, quantum computers could do all sorts of weird calculations, but the answers were often just, random noise, useless. This was different. This was a quantum machine solving a problem that is literally impossible for a regular supercomputer, and, here's the key part, giving back a useful, trustworthy answer. This is the moment quantum computing really grew up.
So how in the world did they do it? With this absolutely brilliant method they call the quantum echoes algorithm. Okay, try to picture this. You take a perfectly stable system and you just push it into total chaos, a complete mess. Then you make one tiny, tiny change, like the flap of a butterfly's wings. But here's the magic trick. They can then run that entire chaotic process perfectly in reverse. Yeah, it's like unscrambling an egg. And by measuring the echo of that one little change, they can see things on a molecular level with a clarity we've just never had before. Okay, a tool for seeing molecules? That's cool, right? But for thinkers like Ray Kurzweil, this kind of computing power isn't just a new tool, it's a stepping stone, a huge one. They see this as proof that we are rocketing towards a future so radical it has its own name, the Singularity. And this is the guy right at the center of it all, Ray Kurzweil. He's a top researcher at Google and, really, the leading evangelist for this whole idea. His argument is actually pretty simple. The next step in human evolution isn't going to be biological. It's going to be technological. The goal isn't just to use AI, it's to become AI. And he's not talking about some far-off, distant future. I mean, look at this timeline. He predicts that by 2029, that's just a few years from now, an AI will be totally indistinguishable from a human. Then, in the 2030s, we'll start plugging our brains directly into the cloud. And by 2045, the big one, the singularity. That's the point where technological progress becomes so fast, so profound, that human history as we know it just ends. So what's driving this insane acceleration? Kurzweil calls it the law of accelerating returns. The basic idea is that progress feeds on itself. I mean, think about it, right? We used computers to design better computer chips. Those better chips let us build the AIs that are now helping us design even more powerful AIs. It's this wild feedback loop that Kurzweil believes is pushing us forward at an exponential speed that's, frankly, almost impossible to wrap your head around.
Now, I know this can all start to feel really abstract. Superintelligence, brains in the cloud, But there are people out there applying these exact ideas in deeply personal ways right now. And that brings us to this concept of freedom of form.
This is the work of an entrepreneur named Martine Rothblatt, and she is really pushing these boundaries. She wanted to explore how you could preserve a consciousness outside of the body, so she commissioned this robot, Bina 48. The robot's entire personality is based on what's called a mind file, which is just a massive digital archive of memories, beliefs, and thoughts from her actual wife, Bina. It's a real, tangible, and for a lot of people kind of startling, first step toward what you might call digital immortality. Now, Rothblatt, who is a transgender woman herself, makes this really fascinating argument. She connects the fight for transgender rights directly to the transhumanist vision. She says that transgenderism establishes a super important principle, that our identity isn't permanently locked to the biology we were born with. And from there, she sees a logical next step. If we have the freedom to choose our gender, why shouldn't we have the freedom to choose our very form, whether that's flesh and bone, pure software, or, a swarm of nanobots?
Okay, so far we've heard this incredible story of promise, right? Conquering disease, death, all our limitations. But for every person who sees a techno-utopia at the end of this road, there's a powerful critic warning that we're not heading for utopia at all. We're heading for a disaster.
And this really gets to the core tension of this whole thing. After hearing all about immortality and superintelligence, the big question is this the future we actually want? Is merging with machines the ultimate act of human freedom, or is it the ultimate act of self-destruction? Let's start with the pushback from the scientists. Biologist P.Z. Myers, well, he doesn't mince words. He basically says transhumanism is bullshit. For him, this whole idea of uploading your consciousness just completely ignores the messy, complex, evolved reality of what our brains are. He argues it's a fantasy, treating the mind like it's just a piece of software, when it's not. Consciousness is something that emerges from our biological wetware.
Then you have political scientist Francis Fukuyama, who raises a totally different alarm. He's called transhumanism perhaps the world's most dangerous idea. So why so serious? Because our entire concept of equal rights is built on the foundation of a shared human nature. If we start creating a new, enhanced class of post-humans, he asks a terrifying question. What happens to the very idea of equality?
And then there's the humanistic critique. A security researcher named Nathan Hamiel argues this isn't about progress at all. He thinks it's all about fear. He sees this whole project as being driven by a deep, profound terror of mortality, a willingness to trade away everything that makes us human. Our struggles, our flaws, our fragility, all for a longer, but maybe much emptier existence.
And finally, there's the theological argument. Thinkers like Anton Sack, they frame this not as liberation, but as a new kind of slavery. From this point of view, merging with some superintelligent system isn't an expansion of who you are, it's the complete annihilation of who you are. It turns a free individual into just another passive cog in a vast, unthinking machine.
So you can see, the backlash to this vision is coming from all sides. You've got scientists like P.Z. Myers saying it's biologically impossible. You've got political thinkers like Fukuyama warning it's a social catastrophe. Humanists are saying it's existentially empty, and philosophers like Jaron Lanier have even given it a name, cybernetic totalism, a new belief system that reduces human beings to nothing more than data patterns.
So all of this brings us to our conclusion. We are, without a doubt, standing at a genuine crossroads. We're facing a choice, not just about the tools we're going to build, but about what we fundamentally want to be.
Let's lay out the conflict in its starkest terms. On one side, the promise, a near total victory over death, disease, and suffering by transcending our biological limits. And on the other side, the peril, the risk of losing our very humanity, creating a permanent new form of inequality, and trading a meaningful life for some kind of cheap, simulated existence.
And this brings us right back to Fukuyama's core warning, and it can really be distilled down to this number: 1. The idea of one single shared human essence is the bedrock of democracy. It's the foundation for the idea that all men are created equal. If technology shatters that shared humanity, creating an enhanced elite and an unenhanced majority, well, the entire political project of the last few hundred years could just crumble.
This quote from Nathan Hamiel really gets to the heart of that humanistic critique. When experiences become easy, they lose their value. I mean, think about it. So much of what we value, love, art, personal achievement, it comes directly from struggle, from friction. And so the question we have to ask is, in our quest to engineer an easy life, do we risk engineering a valueless one?
And so, this is the ultimate question we're left with. The technologies we're building are giving us the power to literally redesign ourselves. So, are we writing the next incredible chapter of human history, or are we writing the final one? The debate is officially out of the realm of science fiction. The choice is real, and it's approaching fast.